following is a live copyrighted presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for RadioLawTalk.com with your host, Frederick Penney, attorney at law. And now, RadioLawTalk.com.
I am a lost boy from Neverland, usually hanging out with Peter Pan. And when we're bored, we play in the woods, always on the
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Radio Law Talk. I'm your host, Frederick Penney. When you are tired of politics radio, put your bum right here and listen to Lost Boys. That's for our boy. Who's that for, Denise?
Dan Hunt.
That's for Dan Hunt, our Lost Boy, that is finally sitting next to me on my left.
I actually was hanging out with Peter Pan. I did go to Disneyland.
Well, that's exactly right. Disneyland, and we're here working. Well, actually, Denise and I were actually playing in a certain part of the country that had the ocean. But
starts with an H, ends with Hawaii.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. But welcome, Chris Rodriguez, Denise Dirks. Obviously, back behind the glass, we've got our producer, Cal Hunter. Nice to have Cal here, and Garrett Penney, my son, is clerking here, taking care of, actually our law firm, and taking care of some stuff at Radio Law Talk. And, of course, our call screener, Seth Madden. Thanks for doing all the work, guys. And you know what? There's a lot going on today, guys. We've got so much to talk about. We're just, before the show started, discussing what are we going to talk about, because there's no way we're going to fit it in 1 hour. Don't forget, call us if you have a question, 855-LAW-RADIO, 855-LAW-RADIO if you have a question.
Or tweet us at Radio Law Talk.
That's exactly right. So we're going to talk about the Trinity Lutheran Church versus Comer, which is about the issue of church and state that we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about the Aaron Persky, Judge Aaron, is it Persky is how you say it?
Persky, yes, exactly.
Who some people are talking about recalling him. He's a Santa Clara County judge that was the judge on the Stanford rape case of the swimmer in Stanford. And then Dan's going to talk about whistleblowers, but I'm not quite sure we can get all that in. We're going to try. But here's the most important point. Fire Festival. Remember we talked about Fire Festival? Well, it was about a month ago. Some interesting things going on. Remember what happened at the Fire Festival, guys? Does anybody remember?
Fire Festival is
nothing. That's what happened.
Nothing. That's exactly right, Dan.
Fire Festival's the person who promoted the concert right down in the Bahamas, and everybody was supposed to show up and get this first class VIP treatment, and they showed up, and there was just some old tents that looked like the
for the rich kids.
Yeah, well, these tents looked like they were the opposite of that, right? And no food, no beer. Worst of all, no beer.
Yeah,
and no music.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Yeah, nobody shows up. The musicians that were supposed to show up didn't show up. But the update is Billy McFarland is arrested for wire fraud. He can get up to 20 years in prison because he was claiming things that weren't quite exactly true. Now, again, this is all alleged. So as lawyers, we always say this is alleged. But it's alleged that he was telling people that he earned millions of dollars a year as in booking artists, when actually he earned about $60,000 a year. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. He was also exaggerating about, I think, his stocks and how much he owned in stocks. So anyway, that's going to be something we're going to follow here at Radio Law Talk. But man, what an interesting thing!
You don't have to be a top-notch lawyer to know he has himself some legal problems. He's going to be fighting an uphill battle here.
Exactly right. That's why we always use our disclaimer: seek your own legal counsel for specific legal issues.
Attorneys and exaggeration? Oh no,
Never.
Not in this room.
No.
Not from Denise, at least.
Yeah.
No way.
Dan and I and Chris, maybe. So let's talk a little bit about this Trinity Lutheran Church. I don't know if you've heard what's going on, but Trinity Lutheran Church out of Missouri has this child learning center, and it's a preschool type situation where the church owns the preschool, and they have a really cool playground, just like anybody else. And the playground's old. It's got pea gravel. So this is all about pea gravel. That's how it starts out, pea gravel. Which, by the way, when I grew up, I don't know about you guys. Did you have pea gravel in your playground? I had like big sharp shards of rocks and
Played on glass shards. glass. That's what it was.
Shredded wood. I got splinters.
I think I actually did. I actually do remember it because it would just get all dusty and nasty and gross. And then they went to like bark, and now they've got rubber, and it's all amazing. So
those good things that don't harm you when you fall off the 14-foot ladder going up the jungle gym.
Yeah, my niece just broke her arm a couple months ago playing on one of the schoolyard
My niece
things.
too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My niece did too.
Well, let's talk about this. So anyway, what happens is in the state of Missouri, they have this program through the government that allows people to take their old tires, they shred them up. It's all about recycling, and they shred them up to these little tiny pieces, and then they use it in the playgrounds, which is softer for the kids to fall and it's easier to walk on. And you can apply for any school can apply for this through the grant process. Well, guess who applies is the Lutheran Church, the Trinity Lutheran Church, applies for a grant from the government, just like any other school, and there was actually 44 people that applied, and there's certain things that you have to do in order to, be able to receive
get the money.
Yeah, and it's like a scorecard. Number one, is your area a poor area? Then you get a higher score. Do you do recycling yourself? You get a high score. Well, the Lutheran Church, their little preschool was ranked 4th out of 44, I believe, or out of 45. But anyway, 4th out of 44, 45. And they grant 14 of them, and they say, everyone, these 14 schools get it, but not the Lutheran Church because you're a church. And so guess what? They sue. And what do they sue about? Yeah, this is interesting. And then here's one question that is very interesting. A lot of people don't know. And maybe you guys can answer this. I want you to answer this because I know you know the answer. How do these people afford it? How does this little Lutheran church take this all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States?
Conservative, in this case, conservative groups that are funded, and people donate money to them, and then they go out and look for good pieces of litigation to get behind. So the lawyers didn't take it pro bono. They got paid very handsomely, I'm sure, to take this all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was funded by folks who probably were Lutheran supporters of church or more conservative.
Or civil rights groups.
Exactly right, like ACLU
Right.
or the Sierra Club. Their donations pay for these lawsuits to stop people. And this was the Alliance Defending Freedom group that picked it up, and they have lawyers, and they took this all the way to the United States Supreme Court because it went through the state courts and then went all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
And this was the Missouri government that denied them. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And so we talk about the First Amendment, the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. So that's the First Amendment. Now, here's what the people always say. Well, here's a problem with the separation of church and state. And I think we talked about this before. Where's the separation of church and state in the Constitution?
It isn't there.
It isn't there. That's what people think. You know what that's originally from? The history of the word separation of church and state came from Thomas Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist Association in 1802. The letter referenced this issue, and I'm going to quote some of it. It says, believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, and he owes account to none, blah, 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 blah. He keeps on going, and then he talks about and throws in separation of church and state. And that's how it's used. And and everyone uses that like it's in the Constitution. It's not.
So the folks, though, because originally the church lost their legal case, right? And the Supreme Court ruled in their favor ultimately. But there were multiple courts that ruled that the Missouri government was correct in not giving this church money because they were a church, and because had they given them the money, that would have been considered the government getting involved and supporting church.
That's
exactly
correct.
right. And then so it went to the Missouri court, and then the appellate court, and then it went up to the United States Supreme Court, and everybody except the United States Supreme Court, which we'll talk about after the break, basically said that's a problem, and you're not allowed to receive government funds in that way. So we'll be right back and talk more about this interesting topic with the Lutheran Church.
I didn't know what day it was when you walked into the room. I said hello unnoticed. You said
This is Denise Sturks. We can represent clients in divorce, legal separation, child and spousal support, custody, termination of parental rights, step-parent adoptions, guardianships, and even conservatorship matters. Call 1-877-886-7186 for a consultation.
The law offices of Denise L. Dirks provide family law services in Northern California. When the law affects your family, call 877-886-7186. The family of attorneys.
Are you ready for a six-story adrenaline rush of chilling, spine-tingling fun? Then check out Riptide at Gulfland Sunsplash, the thrill-seekers raft ride everyone's talking about, along with Double Dare, Thunder Falls, and Master Blaster, Northern California's only water coaster, plus 30 rides and attractions for everyone in the family. Plan your day of fun at Gulfland.com and get your splash on. Gulfland Sunsplash in Roseville, home of the new Riptide, with free parking every day.
Since 1960, Iceberg Drive-In has been a family favorite for not only our famous thick shakes with unlimited delicious flavor combinations, but also our hand-breaded onion rings, delicious fries, and signature fry sauce. The Iceberg Shake Shop is perfect for high-traffic locations such as busy strip malls, recreational amusement centers, or near theaters. We are seeking qualified franchisees in the western United States. You'll have access to not only the popular Iceberg Drive-In name, but also our procedures, buying power, and operations. Plus, receive support dedicated to your success. For more information, email franchise@icebergdrivein.com or visit our website at icebergdrivein.com.
We're in the studio with Fred Penney, managing attorney with Penney & Associates Injury Lawyers. Fred, tell us what makes you the #1 choice for handling personal injury cases.
Most of our firm is made up of former insurance company trial lawyers with extensive experience handling all types of personal injury matters. We believe that gives us a distinct advantage.
That's Penney & Associates Injury Lawyers with locations throughout California. For a free consultation, go to pennyandassociates.com or call 1-800-616-4-LAW. That's 1-800-616-4-LAW.
Go to the website, radiolawtalk.com. You can listen to the show there, and there's a lot of other good information, too. That's radiolawtalk.com.
Don't forget, if you want to talk about rubber pellets and church and state, give us a call at 855-LAW-RADIO. We're talking about the Lutheran church case, and I want to get to the meat of this. What's important is like we were talking before, it goes up to the United States Supreme Court, and we've talked on this show about the difference between state courts and federal courts, but we're up to the Supreme Court of the United States. They agree to hear it. Believe it or not, they don't have to hear it. They can do what's called deny cert or certiorari. So they said they're going to hear it, and they held that the department's policy, and that's the Department of Missouri, about not allowing a church to receive rubber pellets, basically, because it's a government funded pellet receiving issue, that the department valued the rights of Trinity Lutheran under the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment by denying the church an otherwise available public benefit on account of only its religious status. And that's where they really focus, is the reason they didn't receive the rubber pellets is one reason and one reason only, and it's because of their religion.
These 8-year-olds, like Martin Luther and believe in Jesus, we can't give them government tires.
That's exactly right. Shredded government tires.
Shredded government tires. We can't do that. Thank you, Supreme Court, for clearing that up.
That's exactly right. And here's some interesting thing. That's right. It says the government has repeatedly confirmed that denying a generally available benefit solely on account of religious identity imposes a penalty on the free exercise of religion. They also said that the denial of a grant, this is not an issue of a denial of a grant, but rather the refusal to allow a church solely because of its a church, to compete with secular organization for grant money. But there's other sides to that. What are the other sides, guys?
Well, I mean, let's just think about it. If this was an individual, let's say we were lining up 10 individuals and they were competing for these rubber pellets, government grants for rubber pellets, and one of the individuals that was the most highly rated, their application, was lesbian or gay. Clearly, the government couldn't say, we don't want to give you the rubber pellets because you're lesbian or gay. It's no different, in my mind, the fact that this was a religious institution. You have the right to be religious in this country.
Right. I think it violates the Equal Protections Clause. I think that was really at heart in this decision.
The other side of the argument is that when you're giving government funds and grants to a religion, you're legitimizing that, giving weight behind it, saying, that we favor this religion, or we're going to hold them up as a good religion, because then the people will argue, slippery slope, okay, what about the religion that mutilates cats?
Right.
And they come in and say, hey, we're a religion that we believe in mutilating cats, and we want the government cut up tires as well because the Lutherans got it. So,
yeah, and the other issue, Dan, on that is churches don't pay taxes. So they don't have to pay taxes, but yet they're able to receive tax-funded government pellets. And that's an argument that now actually the ACLU jumped on the side of the state of Missouri and kind of argued basically that's really giving tax money to a church, yet they don't have to pay taxes. They also argued basically a church has every right to make improvements to their property, but, quote, not at the taxpayer's expense or dime. And then there's also an argument, I've heard one person say that there may be some issues if you're receiving money from the government and you're a church of some undue influence. And again, I don't know what that means, but there are issues there. And that was, Ginsburg said, hey, I'm against it. It was 7-2. Seven of the justices in favor, overruling the appellate court, which didn't allow it, and then 2 dissented, said, hey, this is a problem. Now you're going to start mixing church and state.
Yeah, I think this church and state thing is just starting to get going. There are a ton of laws out there that I think are primed to be challenged. In California, within the last year or so, Governor Brown passed a law, and that law says that California state employees cannot, on the government's nickel, travel to other states if those states are perceived to have laws that are adverse to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender population, the LGBT population. And so as I'm listening to you guys talk about this Missouri case, I'm thinking to myself, what is religious? Is the notion that the LGBT community shouldn't be discriminated against? Is that a religious value? Because if it is, I think the California law violates it. And we have been kind of trained to think about religion as church affiliated, but what's the difference? I'll open that up to you guys. What's the difference between what Governor Brown, the values that Governor Brown is putting out there, and a religious view?
Yeah, it all comes back to the history of the Constitution and why we started this country. The reason we did is because there's certain churches, the Church of England, required certain things that you had to follow the church, and that's why we wanted freedom of religion here in the United States, and that's a wide open topic. I don't think this is a slam dunk, easy answer. But you know what's interesting? If you read the details, and we don't have time to go over all the details, they really focus the Supreme Court, on the details of, okay, you're focusing only on the fact that they're a religion, that they can't have this. They intentionally left it myopic and very, very tight. So they didn't open it broad to apply to everything. So I don't think it really opens the door. Because I asked myself, Denise, does this open the door?
No.
And I don't think it does, because they kept it only specific to this instant. This needs to be overturned by the United States Supreme Court. And, by the way, there's 39, I think, states that have this similar law, like Missouri does, that you cannot have government-funded money go to a religious institution that has a school.
And this literally says you cannot be excluded simply because you're a religious group. I mean, it is really that limited.
That's exactly right. So everyone thinks, oh my gosh, this has changed everything. Really, it hasn't. The Supreme Court's pretty smart. They keep it very, very tight. And that is going to leave it open, Dan, for more lawyers to make more money, to argue more things about church and state and religious issues that has always plagued, I'm not going to say the word plague, but have always hit this country in a certain soft spot, because that's very important, religion.
I think after the break we got to talk about the religion that believes in the mutilation of cats. I hadn't heard about that one, but
we'll talk about the guy who wears the pie tin on his DMV license in Arizona, his religion. Did you see that?
We're going to move on after that one, that's for sure. We got a break coming up. So after the break, we're going to talk about Judge Aaron Persky recall, the Santa Clara County judge, possibility for the swimmer.
RadioLawTalk.com. The following announcement brought to you by SacramentoLawyer.com. Finding the right lawyer for your particular needs can be confusing. With all the commercials and listings, and who's to say whether the lawyers there are even any good at what they do? So when you're looking for a lawyer, it makes sense to find someone local with the experience and expertise in that area of the law where you have a need. That's why there is SacramentoLawyer.com. SacramentoLawyer.com. At SacramentoLawyer.com, you just browse the site, free, and see the Facebook reviews on the firms you're considering with just a simple mouse click. That way you learn a little bit more about the lawyers there before you start making this critical decision. And there's no pressure. Use the right tool to find the lawyer that's best for you by going to SacramentoLawyer.com. SacramentoLawyer.com. That's SacramentoLawyer.com.
Since 1960, Iceberg Drive-In has been a family favorite for not only our famous thick shakes with unlimited delicious flavored combinations, but also our hand-breaded onion rings, delicious fries, and signature fry sauce. The Iceberg Shake Shop is perfect for high-traffic locations such as busy strip malls, recreational amusement centers, or near theaters. We are seeking qualified franchisees in the western United States. You'll have access to not only the popular Iceberg Drive-In name, but also our procedures, buying power, and operations. Plus, receive support dedicated to your success. For more information, email franchise@icebergdrivein.com or visit our website at icebergdrivein.com.
Are you ready for a 6-story adrenaline rush of chilling, spine-tingling fun? Then check out Riptide at Gulfland Sunsplash, the thrill seekers raft ride everyone's talking about, along with Double Dare, Thunder Falls, and Master Blaster, Northern California's only water coaster, plus 30 rides and attractions for everyone in the family. Plan your day of fun at Gulfland.com and get your splash on. Gulfland Sunsplash in Roseville, home of the new Riptide, with free parking every day.
usually hanging out with Peter Pan. And when we're bored, we play in the woods.
We're back on, and I'm
always
dancing.
on the run from
There's the Lost Boy sitting to my left. Dan. We've got meetings right after. Those of you, we're going to tell you, and Dan's like, I got to get in my boat. I got to go to the lake, man.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I was
Dan,
working on that this morning.
He's the party boy. He's the party
kids
boy.
that just want to party all the time with their awesome dad.
You know what's interesting?
Blame them.
There's some fun things that are going on. Just so you know, we are actually recording this. That's going to be on our YouTube channel. We're not doing it live, but so go to our YouTube channel, and you're going to see this is recorded. What we're sitting here and talking with our Radio Law Talk shirts. Did you know we have Radio Law Talk T-shirts now that on the back they say, "Who needs law school?" You got Radio Law Talk.
Mm-hmm.
So Garrett, tweet a picture of our shirt of someone standing up wearing a shirt, so they can the people out there can see our awesome shirt that Radio Law Talk, Who Needs Law School. Denise, we're going to talk about the judge in Santa Clara County that some people are kind of a little bit upset about it.
Yeah, Aaron Persky, Judge Aaron Persky out of Santa Clara County, he decided the sentencing in the Brock Turner case. Brock Turner was a swimmer out of Stanford, and he did something that was very bad. He had sex with a person who was a woman who was unconscious, and
out by the dumpster.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was not a good scenario for anybody, and the recommendations by the sentencing board was that he should be sentenced to at least 6 years in jail, and Judge Persky decided to sentence him to 6 months in jail, and he was out in 3 months, and so there was a huge uproar, and in most states there really is not a way to recall judges. California is one of 8 states that allows for there to be recall of judges, and it's an extremely fine point of how you can be recalled. You can be recalled in California by a voter recall. Now, in order to be recalled as a judge by voter recall, you have to have a certain percentage of signatures based upon how many people voted in the last election to get that on the ballot and to have that be a recall.
So why would most states not allow the recalling of a judge?
Because it's a long-standing tradition in United States to try to have a independent judiciary. It's very important that judges are not swayed by politics. In fact, there have been studies done that show that if a judge is coming up for election, which in many states judges are elected as
Including
well as
California.
appointed.
Yep, including California.
Yes, and when they're coming up for a re-election, they tend to give out stiffer sentences. And there's a direct correlation between the elections and a stiffer sentence. So there's a really good argument, actually, that judges should not be subject to recall because it does harm
their judgment.
It does harm many criminals that are being sentenced.
Here's the important thing we just learned from that tidbit. Don't commit a crime around election time.
When contemplating to commit crime,
there you go.
Take a look at your election calendar.
Let's close
November.
Let's close the radio show down.
Hey,
now.
and know your judge. Know your judge and his election schedule. So in California, I wanted to say there's a really good article. It's about judicial selection as well as removal of judges, and it talks about all the states, and we're going to put that up on the website so that you can look at that. But in California, judges can be impeached by the assembly and convicted by 2/3 of the Senate. Now, that's normal. Conviction of a judge is when there's misconduct. That's usual, and that is pretty common in most of the states.
But it's rare that ever happens.
That's very true. It's very rare to have that. In fact, I don't believe it's happened in California.
What about what's going on with Judge Persky? So is there a movement afoot to get him out, or what is happening?
Yeah, there's a law professor out of Stanford, believe it or not, that has really tried to take this up, and a lot of the young people from Stanford and other schools where this type of conduct has become problematic, they are behind the recall. And there was a ton ton of complaints made. We're not talking one or two. We're talking like hundreds of complaints made to the Commission on Judicial Performance. The Commission can actually censor, they can admonish, they can suspend, they can retire, or they can remove a judge as well. But they found that there was no clear and convincing evidence of any misconduct on the part of Judge Persky in this particular case. So he will not be removed by misconduct or bias or anything to that can rise to the level of misconduct.
Okay, now
I'm
going to jump in here. This is why Radio Law Talk is so awesome, because we don't take a position. I mean, we're going to lay both positions out, and I'm going to jump on the judge's side right now because we're going to the whole side that's against the judge. You don't know, and I know this as a lawyer, you really don't know the facts. You don't know all the details that the judge knew sitting through that whole trial and the issues. And this has nothing to do with the rape issue. It has to do with the sentencing issue. And we've got to be very careful as society saying, this is an outrage. How do you know? All you're hearing is from the media. And I'm not saying which side I'm on. I just want to throw out the other side.
Yeah, but there was a lot made public. I do have to say there was a lot that was made public. The father of the swimmer, the Stanford swimmer, he made a very impassioned speech to the judge about not ruining his child's life. He was a very talented individual. He made one indiscretion, and it was very impassioned. And also very public was the victim's statement. Right. 7,000 words is what she wrote, and it was a very distressing and compelling.
Yeah, I read it. I had my 14-year-old son read it. It was very well written. But let me take the other side, Fred, from what you were saying, because I agree with you that the judge should have the discretion to sit there. He listened to the whole trial, and he made the decision that he thought was best, and there is no evidence of bias or anything like that. But there are many people in this country that believe, and I personally think rightly so, if this wasn't a swimmer from Stanford who was white and who came from a wealthy family, that if this was an inner city kid, okay, a Mexican kid or a black kid, the judge...
Oh, what about a Harvard guy?
Oh, either way. Oh. The judge...
MIT...
Let's say a 19-year-old non-college student from the inner city, right. If he's sitting in front of that judge, the judge may not view it the same way just based on implicit bias.
I totally agree.
So that is why this case, I think, has gotten a lot of attention, and this judge in particular has gotten a lot of attention.
Well, Fred and I both are temporary judges, and we are trained to recognize our bias and try to overcome it and make decisions that are unbiased. And it is a challenge, and it is something that you really do have to reflect upon.
It's tough, Denise. It's tough.
Yes. Well, this particular judge, Persky, this is his quote. He said, "I believe strongly in judicial independence. I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, not to appease politicians or ideologues. When your own rights and property are at stake, you want the judge to make a fair and lawful decision free from political influence."
No, I agree with that. We all agree with that.
Yes, I think he said that very well. So in this particular case, the recall may happen. It looks like they're very, 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 very close to having all of the signatures to get it on the ballot. And you guys remember that there was one judge that was actually recalled, and that was Supreme Court Chief Justice Rose Bird.
That's exactly
right. She was
right.
recalled in 1986, the year that I started law school.
I thought you were born in 86.
You have a very youthful voice. Our listeners are shocked to hear that.
But for all this discussion, we're not talking about the victim of the crime. We're talking about the judge and the plaintiff. We're not talking about the victim of the crime, and that's what outraged people. Not the judge, they thought, gave very shallow deference to what happened to this girl, because the poor white kid, the poor little rich kid, had to be treated with kid gloves. That's what it seems to the unwashed masses.
Yes, I could see how that could be viewed that way, and certainly we are not siding against the victim here. We are not. The victim deserves to have her justice, and was it a matter of injustice? It could very well have been. We don't know because we didn't sit in that courtroom, and we did not watch that courtroom, and we did not watch the witnesses. So, we're not in any way, shape, or form condoning the behavior.
And I also do not condone Cal calling our listeners unwashed masses either.
I'm just making the point.
I took a shower.
I have felt personally attacked by that.
I thought he was talking about Rodriguez. The Harvard
safe space, man. I need a safe space right
Producer privilege.
All I gotta say is I've got the 1 minute flash, and then he and Cal starting to play music. So I'm not quite sure if we have 1 minute. We have music. Oh, it says 30 seconds. But anyway, go ahead. So Denise, the final issue here is there going to be a recall? Maybe.
Well, it could be. And really, I think the real true issue here is that can there be collateral damage to California if it does become problematic that they're going to recall judges, and that becomes something that's done a lot? Because I do think that could hurt our justice system. What do you think, Fred?
I don't think now, because we got a break coming on. So we'll be back in a little bit to talk to Dan about whistleblowing.
This is RadioLawTalk.com.
This is Denise Dirks. We can represent clients in divorce, legal separation, child and spousal support, custody, termination of parental rights, step-parent adoptions, guardianships, and even conservatorship matters. Call 1-877-886-7186 for a consultation.
The law offices of Denise L. Dirks provide family law services in Northern California. When the law affects your family, call 877-886-7186. The family of
Since 1960, Iceberg Drive-In has been a family favorite for not only our famous thick shakes with unlimited delicious flavor combinations, but also our hand-breaded onion rings, delicious fries, and signature fry sauce. The Iceberg Shake Shop is perfect for high-traffic locations such as busy strip malls, recreational amusement centers, or near theaters. We are seeking qualified franchisees in the western United States. You'll have access to not only the popular Iceberg Drive-In name, but also our procedures, buying power, and operations. Plus, receive support dedicated to your success. For more information, email franchise@icebergdrivein.com or visit our website at icebergdrivein.com.
Are you ready for a 6-story adrenaline rush of chilling, spine-tingling fun? Then check out Riptide at Gulfland Sunsplash, the thrill-seekers raft ride everyone's talking about, along with Double Dare, Thunder Falls, and Master Blaster, Northern California's only water coaster, plus 30 rides and attractions for everyone in the family. Plan your day of fun at Gulfland.com and get your splash on. Gulfland Sunsplash in Roseville, home of the new Riptide, with free parking every day.
We're in the studio with Fred Penney, managing attorney with Penney and Associates Injury Lawyers. Fred, tell us what makes you the #1 choice for handling personal injury cases.
Most of our firm is made up of former insurance company trial lawyers with extensive experience handling all types of personal injury matters. We believe that gives us a distinct advantage.
That's Penney and Associates Injury Lawyers, with locations throughout California. For a free consultation, go to pennyandassociates.com or call 1-800-616-4-LAW. That's 1-800-616-4-LAW.
You're listening to RadioLawTalk.com. Now back to Fred, Denise, Chris, and Dan.
Welcome back, talking about the latest topics in the law.
Yeah, we were talking in the break about kind of a carryover from what Denise was talking about before the break about racial bias and unconscious or subconscious bias in the law. And I was telling a story. It's not a very flattering story, but Fred, using his power of persuasion, has convinced me to tell this story that's not very flattering of myself. So
Statute limitation has run.
Yes, it has run, but I just want to caveat this by saying I am not proud of myself. But here's the story, okay? Don't hate me out there in listener world. I was a 17-year-old kid, and me and a couple of my buddies were bowling in the very urban city of Davis. And I'm saying
That's
that facetiously.
California.
Davis, California, very suburban.
Davis in the 60s.
Davis, not in the 60s. I graduated from law school after Denise.
I'm talking about Cal.
but in any event, so me and a couple of my buddies, we were all in private school in Davis, and we were bowling, and we had a few beers. We were actually extremely intoxicated. We stopped at Taco Bell.
Are your children listening right now?
They are not.
Okay.
But they've already heard this story. This is a don't do as I do. Learn from your father's mistakes. So anyway, we're drunk. We're drunk. We're outside of Taco Bell in Davis, and one of my friends leans up against a Davis Enterprise newspaper stand. Okay? The newspaper stand falls over, and the three of us, are all looking at each other, and we think to ourselves, man, oh man, they don't chain these things up. Like, anybody could just take this newspaper stand. So what did we do, Fred?
Logically.
You're very bright. I'm sure you hadn't been to Harvard at that point, so you probably took it.
We decided to put this newspaper stand in the back of our car. The trunk of our car. It doesn't fit. The trunk doesn't even close.
Future Harvard graduate.
So we're now driving around the city of Davis.
MIT guys are loving this right now.
Every third car in Davis is a police car. We have a newspaper stand that doesn't fit in the trunk. Trunk doesn't close, and we're drunk.
This is a movie.
You're delivering it. So that's your story.
So in any event, we get pulled over, we get arrested, and we get charged, to my shock and dismay, with a felony. We're charged with a felony, and
why?
Because this newspaper stand apparently had like $325 of quarters in it.
Wow.
Okay, my buddy just wanted to put it in his room because he thought the chicks would think it was cool.
A newspaper stand? I don't want to find new friends, Chris.
I don't know.
So you were charged with
So charged with a felony, and we have to go.
By the way, he normally does not say the word chicks. He meant girls.
Right.
Women.
Pick up
This
some
I'm trying. My mentality is being transported back to when I was 17 years old.
Channeling his 17-year-old self.
Yes,
That's okay.
That's okay. I know.
Yes, or myself from last weekend. But anyway, so this is where the element of bias comes in. We're three private school kids. It just so happens one of my classmates, his father is a columnist for the Davis Enterprise and a really well-known and well-respected guy. He writes a letter to the court and says these are good kids, and all charges were dismissed.
Wait,
just
he's
dropped.
a columnist at the same paper that was stolen by you guys.
Yes, and so on behalf of the Davis Enterprise, he wrote a letter that basically said, look, the Davis Enterprise loves these kids.
Let them
We condone what they were doing in front of the Taco Bell. Please let these guys off. And what happened? We got off. I mean, no charges, nothing.
Dan messed up. They didn't steal it. It was knocked over into the trunk accidentally.
Yes. It was all.
Yeah, so anyway, that is my unflattering story of bias in the criminal justice system that just happened to work out for me.
Yeah,
So
it was a prank, really.
it was stupid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dan has never done any pranks.
So not with alcohol involved, but I was able to do it without any of that. I had a good one. You want to hear mine?
See, at least him.
I want to hear Dan's.
We're going to hear Dan's, but at least he had alcohol. He had an excuse.
No,
Dan had no alcohol.
No excuse. This is all well thought out. No, my buddies and I, we like playing video games in the.
Was this
the
last
city
year or year before?
This was a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
This was teenage years in Elk Grove. And so anyway, one buddy has a nice big TV.
Elk Grove,
the other buddy has the
California.
gaming system. Yeah. But the one buddy with the gaming system that doesn't have the big TV, he has the parents who will let us stay up late and play. So what do we have to do? We have to transport the big TV over to the other friend's house. So we play TV till like 2 in the morning. We're leaving. his parents are asleep, so we turn off all the lights so that they don't wake up, but to get the TV back to our other friend's house. So what are we doing? We're walking out of a dark house with a flat screen TV, 2 in the morning. Who's right there parked in front of the street, in front of the house? 2 Elk Grove police officers chit-chatting right there, literally right in front of the street. And we're like, this doesn't look so good. So of course, cops come over, they've turned the lights on, and they're like, all of you need to sit down on the sidewalk. What in the world is going on here? Oh, we're 16, 17, about the same age as Chris, but yeah. So anyway,
mentally about 7 or 8.
Yes, when I were like, yeah, transporting TVs to at night, out of dark houses. So anyway, they question us. We actually have to go into the house, point out the pictures on the wall of them saying, "This is our house. That's me right there in my glamour shot," like that. And so the
leather jacket, all the whole nine.
Leather jacket, the spiked hair, all that good stuff. Good times down in Elk Grove. Good times, but no federal offenses committed.
See, but that story doesn't make me feel any better. You were not committing a crime, and the cops thought you were.
Yes.
I want to hear when you were actually committing a crime. Come on, we gotta have one here. This is like confession. Let's have confession.
This is turned into confession day. I don't care about our confessions. I want to know about Denise's confession. We're a bunch of boys. We're a bunch of crazy boys.
I'm a cop's kid. I have a lot more discretion than that.
Get out of anything.
It's funny because my dad was a police officer. I don't know if you guys know growing up, but my dad was a cop his whole life, and a Marine. What a rough life. And those of you who know me, we had 4 boys, and oh my gosh, our life was, we had to toe the line, and corporal punishment was with a capital C in our family back in the days. But of course, we lived in a small rural town way back in the corner. Nobody knew what Dad was doing.
Yes, they can get away with anything.
You will never make it past the driveway to call the cops on me.
You know,
all right, Dad, you win.
But that has to have trickled down, right? I mean, I'm sure Garrett, we could probably get Garrett in here to tell some corporal punishment stories. That would be fun.
No, the worst thing I ever did to Garrett was throw his cell phone up against the wall. That was the extent of my meanness toward Garrett.
Okay, so that was stealing. That was vandalism.
Garrett's
that was plenty of damage
on a federally registered device.
Absolutely.
Well, I have a good story if you want to hear one.
We're doing stories now. Let's just forget about the whistleblowing stuff. We'll do it next time. Forget it. Go ahead. Tell me the story, Denise.
This is the truth. Do you guys remember the song "The Streak"?
I remember doing that.
Okay. Well, there's a song, so they call me the Streak, right?
They do.
Yeah, and so my girlfriend's
Do you remember
and I,
that, Chris? You're too young.
No, I don't know the streak, but it's okay. I don't want to interrupt her story. This sounds like we're going to a good spot.
It's the only time that my dad ever literally kicked my butt. And he did kick my butt because me and my girlfriends are up on the school roof tanning. We decided,
quote, trespassing
and tanning.
We decided to do the streak.
It's going south. Get ready to hit the eject button, guys.
The neighbor, the 68-year-old neighbor, gets out his binoculars. He calls my dad. Calls my dad, and there are neighborhood boys trying to get up onto the roof, and we finally get down off the roof and run over to my friend's house. My dad shows up. He gives the keys to my sister and says, "Drive the car home, Debbie." She wasn't even 16 yet. And he kicked my butt all the way home. All the way home. It was like 2 blocks of butt kicking. And I was grounded for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I did.
See, in today...
I was just standing over there by the tomatoes, and here he come, running through the pole beans, through the fruits and veggies.
Yeah, there we go.
Naked as a jaybird.
There you go, Cal.
Jams,
there you go, Cal. Cal always seems to find the best clips at the right time. We're not here to talk about anything but old stories, not radio law talk.
See, now in today's age, the person who would be in trouble is the old 69-year-old guy with the binoculars.
So one would hope.
Yeah.
One would hope, but actually, I could have been in trouble too.
Was he your uncle, the guy that was on the
No, it was my neighbor, and he has 2 teenage girls we used to hang out with, and he would always tell on us. We would always get busted by him.
Denise is running around in her bikini again. I want to get over there.
Or not.
Al, get the binoculars out.
Oh, boy.
Oh, my gosh. We end it.
That's it? That's it. You know the show.
It's a song.
This is the streak.
This is the streak. This is it. Yeah. 70s. This is a 70s song.
77, I think. No,
Oh my
75 probably.
Have we gone to the lowest denominator that we could possibly go?
No, absolutely not. We have so much further we can go, Fred.
We've got 15 seconds left to discuss what's going on, but absolutely we're not going to get to the whistle blowing, but we've had a great time.
I blew the whistle on myself.
That's exactly right. We had a wonderful time today. Sometimes it's fun just to talk about some crazy stories. Welcome back to Radio Law Talk in a week. This is Frederick Penney, your host. Talk to you later. Have a good 4th.
We're reading your tweets.
There's been some disturbance here. Pardon me, sir. Did you see what happened?
Yeah, I did. I was just sitting here trying to get some air in my car there, and he just appeared out of traffic. Comes
You have been listening to RadioLawTalk.com, a copyrighted presentation of Radio Law Talk Incorporated.